Alex enjoys the food prepared in the world where he is now. His level of satisfaction reaches 200%. He notes how delicious the food he tastes is. After eating, the protagonist decides to go to the guild to get at least some task to increase his level and earn. He feels invigorated and ready for new accomplishments. The hero ponders the fact that he needs to earn money to buy new gear and continue exploring the outer areas of the city. However, he gets lost on his way to the guild and admits that he is lost, which is frustrating because the protagonist doesn't know the area. He finds himself in a strange place that seems abandoned. Alex decides to ask for directions, feeling uncomfortable in this mysterious and slightly creepy neighborhood. The hero encounters a rugged, bearded man from whom he tries to ask for directions. The man meets him suspiciously, asking who brought him here. The protagonist tries to explain that he was not directed by anyone, but simply lost his way, and he only needs to find out the way. This person is probably strong, judging by his sturdy build. The hero looks around and realizes that he is in a gun shop. An unknown man asks him to leave the room if he is not going to buy a gun. Alex, a bit taken aback, replies that he is actually looking for a weapon and was just on his way to get himself something interesting and suitable for it. The shopkeeper is impressed by the hero. He notices that the main character has a talent for martial arts, but he is surprised that with such a talent, he has so little money. The hero is shocked that his appearance can give away such details about him. Alex told the blacksmith that he woke up in the woods without money and in another world. In response, the blacksmith only said that if he survived in such conditions, he was strong enough to survive further. "And what happened to you? It's none of my business," he added. The blacksmith explained to Alex that, based on his build, he would be better off with a one-handed sword and shield. He also warned him not to sell his wares to anyone who couldn't use them effectively, and asked him not to divulge information about his shop. Despite his stern look and words, the blacksmith recognized that Alex was talented and could be a great swordsman in the future. He also added that this was the only reason he didn't kick Alex out of the shop. Alex says goodbye to the blacksmith, promising to return when he has saved enough money. The blacksmith, despite his rudeness, wished him luck and warned him not to die. When Alex asked for directions to the guild, the blacksmith mumbled, "Ask someone else." When Alex goes outside, he meets several guild helpers, among them an acquaintance named Sally. She greets him and offers to help him. Alex decides to take advantage of this opportunity. Alex is interested in taking an assignment, and Sally's happy to explain to him how the system works. He can take an assignment from the assignment board, but only one that matches his rank. Alex comes to the task board, where he is offered tasks that correspond to his current rank. But since he is still a beginner, only simple tasks, such as collecting herbs, are available to him. Sally explains that the guild is experiencing a shortage of Zunan herb, which is used as a healing agent. Alex agrees to help, and takes it upon himself to gather as much of it as possible. The protagonist learns that Zunan grass is quite common, but its poisonous counterpart often grows around it, making it difficult to collect large quantities. Sally explains that most adventurers bring Zunan grass by accident. When they find it among the poisonous plants, Alex realizes that gathering this resource may be more difficult than he thought. Alex uses his skill and checks the vault and finds the same Zunan healing herb, but in smaller quantities. Sally confirms that Alex has shown the very Zunana herb they need. Alex is relieved to realize that he knows the place where it can be found, since that is where he first came to this world. Alex remembers the place where he was first transported to the New World and realizes that the herb must be in this forest. He decides to go there again, hoping that this time he will not encounter dangerous monsters. After reaching the forest, Alex starts to look at the grass. Looking around for the right plant, he still finds it difficult to orient himself in the area, but he decides to continue his search despite his tiredness. After a while, Alex realizes that he can't find the grass despite his best efforts. He stops to catch his breath and thinks about where he might have gone wrong. Finally, Alex discovers a plant that at first glance appears to be a Zunana herb that is needed. However, upon closer examination, he realizes that it is a poisonous analog, the consumption of which can cause serious health problems. Alex reflects on how difficult it is to distinguish a useful herb from its poisonous counterpart. He begins to think that his ability analysis may help him in further searching and distinguishing herbs. Deciding to use his skill of analyzing information, Alex tries to turn it into a kind of radar search. He focuses on a plant, hoping that it will help him find the right one among many others. However, attempts to use the analysis do not yield results, and Alex begins to lose hope. Suddenly before him flashes a symbol indicating that the right herb is nearby. Alex is happy to realize that he has managed to discover the real Zunin. Now he knows for sure that his ability to analyze can help him find rare and valuable resources in this new world. Sally from the guild looks surprised at the huge pile of grass that Alex has collected. She obviously didn't expect so much, which causes her some confusion. Alex explains that he used his assessment skill on all the plants to make sure he collected only the right herb, Zunana, and no poisonous specimens among them. Satisfied with the result, Alex notes that all the plants meet the length requirements. More than 15 centimeters, he concludes that Zunana is growing fast enough. Sally checks the collected herbs with a magic device to make sure that Alex has really only brought Zunanu. Her gaze is focused and serious. However, the result of the check confirms Alex's words. All the piles of grass are indeed Zunana, and this confuses the girl, and Alex is delighted. The girl begins to doubt Alex's words, pointing out that he used the word estimate, even though he had no such skill before. She suspects that something is wrong. Alex excuses himself, trying to reassure the girl, and claims that he does have the assessment skill, but it just doesn't show up in his status, which makes her even more suspicious. Sally pensively expresses her doubts about the ability of the evaluation skill to not show up in the status. Alex, happy that the situation has been resolved, thanks her for her cooperation. Alex then goes to the smithy to buy a shield, as he had planned earlier. He greets the owner and declares his intention to make the purchase, as he has enough money. The smithy owner rather rudely tells Alex to come in and wait. Clearly not intending to pay attention to him right away, Alex apologizes and waits patiently. Alex notices that one of the plaques has the name Dovra embossed on it. He suspects that this is the name of the blacksmith who makes his shield. Just around the corner of the forge, Alex sees the blacksmith Doverag working hard, striking the hot metal with his hammer, each blow resounding in the forge. Alex watches eagerly as the craftsman finishes the final touches of his craft, creating a piece that will soon become his new defense. The blacksmith, having finished his work, invites Alex in, saying that the shield is ready and he needs to try it out. Alex is amazed at the master's speed and precision. Alex confirms that he has the money to buy one, and notes that he only needs a shield since he can use magic and has some talent. Smith wonders if the protagonist is actually able to use magic. Then you probably wouldn't need a staff to focus it, Smith added. Alex wonders if he should use the staff to control magic more accurately. But the blacksmith explains that with the staff, the power of magic will increase, and without it, it will be harder to direct accurately. Despite his confidence, Alex realizes that magic will be slower without the staff, and still decides that his skills are fine for now. Smith warns Alex not to be presumptuous, and to be careful mentioning that he has seen many talented people who died because they underestimated the danger. Alex tests several shields before he finds the one that fits him perfectly, noting to himself the shrewdness of the blacksmith, who guessed his preferences right away. The protagonist looks with admiration at the shield he has just purchased from the blacksmith. He is pleased that the piece fits him so well and seems to him like an extension of his body, as if the shield were a second skin. The blacksmith, noticing the hero's interest in the forging process, asks if he wants to place an order for a sword, to which the hero instead inquires about the peculiarities of hardening swords. The blacksmith, surprised by the question, demonstrates the process, showing how to properly heat and cool the metal to harden the sword, showing the professionalism of his work. The hero watches the process in amazement and clarifies if he understood the steps correctly when the blacksmith explains the sequence: strike, heat, then cool quickly. When the smith completes the process, the hero is dismayed to notice that the sword shape may be distorted, but the smith is confident that this will not interfere with the sword's hardness. Suddenly, the blacksmith is surprised to notice how strong the metal has become, marveling at the result, and loudly expresses his amazement. Hero suggests trying to heat the metal at a lower temperature and cool it more slowly to correct possible distortions and make the metal more flexible. The blacksmith, impressed by the hero's suggestion, agrees to try it, although he himself does not know the exact temperature, at which such a procedure should be carried out. The blacksmith tells Alex that he is interested in this task and suggests that he return in 2 days when he will learn a new approach and perhaps make an excellent sword. Alex, leaving, smiles, realizing that the blacksmith is fully immersed in his work. Despite his abruptness, the hero sees that the blacksmith took real pleasure in his craft. The protagonist, while looking around the city, decides to use his appraise skill on the adventurers to get more information. Although he doesn't really like it, he decides to go to the square where the adventurers gather. The hero is surprised that the mage's MP level is almost the same as the level of ordinary adventurers. He is also interested that everyone in the city has a fairly low level, and no one has rare skills. He explores the stores in town but finds nothing special, except for an unusual item, magical meat. He manages to find a green wolf bun, which he later notices is quite common in this world. Another interesting feature of this world for the hero is his clothes, which have the magical property of being cleaned by simple contact with water. But despite this, he still prefers to wash his clothes himself and misses the habits of his world. While picking herbs, the hero notices that it is already dark, immersed in the process. He missed the moment when it became dark outside. He decides to return home, but suddenly feels the approach of danger. Suddenly, the hero is attacked by a large green wolf. He realizes that he went too deep into the forest and found himself in an area where monsters live. The wolf immediately rushes at him with a menacing growl. Alex quickly realizes that he needs to act immediately and decides to attack the moment the wolf lands after the jump. He prepares to throw a fireball, trying to catch the beast on the fly. Using his magical abilities, the hero releases a fireball that flies straight at the target. But despite this, the wolf is followed by several other wolves, which only complicates the situation. Now the hero faces a new threat: several green wolves which began to surround him. He realizes that he will have to fight against the entire pack and be extremely careful. Looking at the approaching wolves, the hero keeps his shield at the ready for the next round of battle and to win this battle. The protagonist, surrounded by wolves, looks worried. The wolves growl viciously, looking at him from different directions, preparing to attack. One of the wolves leaps forward, baring its teeth and growling viciously, aiming at the hero. The protagonist launches a fireball spell, which explodes in a bright flash, engulfing the wolves. A huge amount of energy destroys some of the wolves. Alex realizes that he has managed to increase his level, rejoicing in his new achievement. When the hero quickly looks around, he notices that only one wolf remains in front of him. The wolf rushes forward and the protagonist prepares for his next move, holding a shield in one hand and a spell in the other. While the hero is focused on one of the wolves, he suddenly realizes that the second wolf, which should have been nearby, has disappeared from his sight. Finding himself confused, he looks up, realizing that the second wolf has jumped from a tree and is attacking from above. The hero realizes with horror that the wolf is above him. This unexpected attack throws him off balance, and he tries to think of ways to defend himself against the impending threat. The wolf successfully attacks the hero. Pushing him to the ground, Alex struggles fiercely, trying to repel the attack. The wolf clutches his shield with force, but the hero still holds on, despite the clear superiority of the beast. The hero realizes that to activate his magic, he needs to concentrate and visualize the spell. He decides to act by concentrating on his magic and strengthening his will to create a powerful spell effect. The protagonist casts the spell Stone Spears, which instantly unleashes a multitude of stone spikes in all directions, striking the wolves. The power of the spell tears enemies apart, destroying them in one powerful blow. One of the wolves is shattered to dust by a stone spear, and the other wolves take damage as well. But the hero realizes that the threat is not yet fully eliminated, and he remains alert. As the waves of energy subside, the hero looks around and realizes that he almost missed the moment. His thoughts are filled with a sense of relief, but he admits that he wasn't careful enough in the battle and could have suffered much more. Many people look in amazement at the huge pile of grass that Alex has collected. It seems to have exceeded their expectations, and their faces express a kind of bewilderment and admiration. Alex chuckles at the amount of weeds Zunana has harvested, and as Sally admits that her common sense no longer applies when dealing with him, the protagonist trying to figure out if it was a compliment. Sally counts the total amount of money for the herbs. Surprised that Alex had been doing it all day, the protagonist explains that he was so engrossed in collecting the herbs that he was attacked by green wolves, but managed to defeat them with magic. Sally is surprised and delighted that Alex has managed to defeat a whole pack of monsters. She wonders how he did it, because mages usually can't fight several enemies at the same time. Alex simply explains that he used the shield to protect and repel attacks while using magic. Sally is shocked at his simple answer, not understanding how this is possible. Sally, the girl, says that to concentrate on magic, you need at least 3 seconds of immobility, and with the use of the shield, this is hardly possible. The protagonist explains that it is really difficult. They continue to discuss magical abilities. Alex calms her down by assuring her that he is fine. Sally suggests that he call a magician for treatment if necessary, but he assures her that he is not hurt. Alex thinks about magic and realizes he needs to learn more about it. He considers it good news and ponders the possibilities. Alex analyzes his magic stats, noting that his magic power, MP, is over 2,000, and it regenerates at more than 2 units per minute. He compares his abilities to the local laws of this world. The protagonist ponders that using cheap spells can be ineffective. He decides to learn powerful spells that will allow him to deal with multiple enemies at once. Alex decides to develop his magic and set himself the goal of becoming a magical swordsman with the help of special skill. Alex decided to have a little lunch break sitting under a tree. Suddenly, a small animal appears next to him, which seems to have decided to have lunch too, and Alex looks at his new furry friend in surprise. Alex continues to explore his abilities. He ponders how he can improve his detection skills to compensate for his lack of perception. While walking through the woods, he decides to try using magic to do so. Alex gets an idea in his head of how he can expand his perception with magic. He imagines his magic spreading around him in the form of invisible circles, covering the surrounding space. Alex focuses on his magical energy, imagining it coming out of his hands and going to the tree. He concentrates on visualizing each movement of energy, wanting to get a tangible feeling of its power. Alex watches as his magical energy really starts to interact with the environment. He manages to make the magic feel the tree, and this discovery makes him surprised and delighted. Alex notes with a smile that thanks to magic, he can now literally feel the texture of the bark of the tree. Although he has not touched it physically, this new discovery gives him a feeling of euphoria and confidence. Inspired by his success, Alex decides to expand the range of his magical perception. He concentrates even harder, increasing the radius of his magic and spreading it over a larger area. However, as the radius of magic increases, the protagonist begins to receive too much information at once. His head begins to receive data about every object within the radius of his magic network: animals, plants, and even rocks. Realizing that the flow of information is becoming uncontrollable, Alex feels that his consciousness cannot cope with this amount of data. He begins to panic, realizing that it may get out of control. Alex tries to come to his senses, feeling that his head is about to explode from the amount of unnecessary information. He realizes that this method of magic is not suitable for real battles, and will have to find another way to use his abilities. Alex is sitting in a clearing. His shield is next to him. He needs to develop his magical abilities to compensate for his lack of perception. He keeps thinking about his magic, how to improve it, how to achieve more, and not to make past mistakes. Alex goes to the forest, still thinking only about his magical powers. He decides to practice to better understand how his magic works in this world. Alex thinks about how he can use his magic to explore the surrounding area. He tries to imagine magic spreading around him as if creating an invisible circle to detect objects or creatures nearby. Alex begins to practice imagining the magical energy coming from his hands and reaching for the nearest tree. He visualizes how the energy contacts the tree, as if groping the bark, and begins to feel it more clearly. When the magic reaches the tree, the protagonist is surprised at how realistic it feels. He watches in fascination as his magical energy interacts with the tree, and for the first time feels the real power of his abilities. Alex used perception magic, creating 50 circular maps to better control the situation. He realized that now he would not be ambushed and could stay on guard. Constantly expanding the radius of perception, he headed towards the blacksmith. Alex arrived at the forge, remembering that a few days ago, blacksmith Dovrag promised to prepare a sword for him. The blacksmith yawned, scratching his beard. Alex asked if his sword was ready. Receiving a positive answer, he was happy. The blacksmith reported that the sword was excellent and praised its durability thanks to a new charcoal hardening technique that made the material particularly strong, meaning Alex would have no trouble in battle. Alex thought about the technology of metalworking, marveling at the result, because earlier such effects would have been impossible when working with wrought iron. The blacksmith proudly offered Alex a chance to try the sword in action, insisting that it was one of his best creations, and Alex, though unsure of his skills, agreed. At the onslaught of Dovra's request, Alex took the sword in his hands and cautiously prepared for the first movement, feeling an unusual excitement and at the same time lightness. Alex makes the first swing of his sword, wondering how his body moves so naturally as if he is already used to this weapon. He feels the energy flowing through his hands, guiding his actions. My body moved on its own. Alex marveled at his reflexes and intuitive actions that seemed to be beyond his control, but in control of his sword. The blacksmith smilingly notes that Alex, though he has no memory of his past life, clearly knows how to handle a sword, which further convinces Alex that he has great potential that he has not yet fully realized. Alex is puzzled. The blacksmith gave him such a valuable sword for nothing, but the blacksmith, laughing, explains that he sees no problem in it. He, they say, has learned to make such swords much faster and better than before. Alex, surprised by the blacksmith's generosity, decides not to ask too many questions, but only one thing is important for him to know. This sword will be his main tool in his future adventures. The blacksmith adds that for combat, in addition to the sword, would not hurt light armor. Alex, thinking about his kit, realizes that it was long overdue to think about it. Alex expresses interest in light armor that will not restrict his movements. The blacksmith suggests leather instead of heavy metal, which would be ideal for a magic class or someone looking for flexibility in combat. The blacksmith recommends Alex to go to an artisan he knows who specializes in leather goods. This artisan will definitely give Alex a good service. Alex enters the workshop of a craftsman where he is met by a friendly girl. He immediately realizes that she is probably the manager of this establishment. Alex mentions that he was recommended by Dovra, which immediately surprises the girl. She admires that such an experienced blacksmith like Dovra gives recommendations even for beginners. Alex holds out his sword to the girl, who instantly notices that its design resembles the work of the blacksmith Dovra. He is surprised to realize that she knows the smallest details. Suddenly, the girl throws a piece of cloth into the air and easily cuts it with her sword. Alex watches in horror. The girl admiringly and smilingly states that the sword cuts perfectly, while Alex nervously looks around trying to figure out what's going on. Alex is amazed by her skill. The girl, laughing, says that the sword is really from the blacksmith Dovra, and it is the best quality steel sword she has ever seen. The girl states that a good sword must be paired with the right armor. Alex wonders about the available materials, while the girl offers to make the armor according to his preferences. She shows him a sample of Gargan skin, a tough material that moves easily and has high defense. The protagonist looks at the sample with curiosity. However, the girl warns him that Gargan skin is quite expensive, and if he needs more budget-friendly armor, Greenwolf skin is an affordable but less protective option. Alex agrees that Gargan leather is his best option. The girl smiles and explains that she specializes in outfits for novice adventurers as she can't afford expensive materials. Alex notices a mannequin with armor in the store and wonders if it is part of the assortment. The girl replies with slight embarrassment that it is a special experiment. This light armor can automatically activate protective magic using the wearer's magical energy, but it uses too much energy, and most people can only use it for 30 minutes before it becomes normal clothing again. They discuss the magic-activated armor, finding it ideal for him. The magical armor that no one uses because of the difficulty of activation attracts his attention, as his mana supply allows him to easily maintain a magical barrier. The protagonist analyzes the armor. and comes to the conclusion that normal adventurers will not be able to use it to its full potential. But thanks to his own high mana reserves, he can easily handle the cost of activating the protective barrier. Alex asks about the protection characteristics of this armor and its price. The seller agrees to sell the armor for the same price as the Gargan leather armor, as their protection strength is approximately equal. The salesgirl expresses doubts that Alex is really going to buy the armor, as she doesn't recommend it. Alex decides to just try it, promising that if it doesn't fit, he will buy leather armor. The girl takes the measurements for the armor and says it will be ready by the next evening. She specifies that you can pick it up when the evening bell rings, and the character confirms his intentions to come. Alex wonders if the store sells any other goods besides armor. The seller recommends visiting a nearby magic store to buy a staff, which the character also thinks about. Suddenly, there are strange magic lines or effects. Alex and the girl are watching what will happen next. These effects resemble the sensation of moving or teleporting, probably due to magic or the use of a magical device to communicate between stores. A real magician enters the store. The salesman expresses displeasure at the fact that connected to her store without permission, but the magician thinks that it is not so important, Alex admires, calling her a real wizard. A magician who really fits the classic image of a wizard. The protagonist is amazed by her appearance, which completely corresponds to his ideas about magicians. The magician actively invites Alex to visit her store, where she sells various goods. Alex admits that he did not know about the fame of the blacksmith, which is confirmed by his fame among local specialists. Alex, surprised by the inner magic of the building, looks around. His gaze falls on the sparkling lamps hanging in the air and the impressive staircase leading to the second floor. He has never seen anything like it. Alex can't hide his admiration from what he has seen. He listens attentively to the magician, who confidently goes forward, as if this magical world is completely familiar to her, and she feels very confident. The magician has led Alex to a wall where various staffs hang. He asks what kind of staff Alex would like to purchase, providing a huge selection of magical items. Alex is confused, as there are many staffs in front of him. He wonders if there are any significant differences between them. As the choice is incredibly large, he was very interested. The magician explains that the length of the staff affects the speed of magic, and the longer the staff, the faster the spells. However, long staffs are more difficult to control, and everyone chooses a staff based on their own convenience. Magica points out that standard staffs are usually between 60 and 120 centimeters long, leaving Alex room to choose whichever he is more comfortable with. But Alex needs something else. Alex, after hearing the explanation, thinks that for dungeons where space is limited, he could use a shorter staff. He chooses the 60-centimeter version for more maneuverability. Alex, with a smile, asks the magician if he has a staff that increases the speed of magic 3 times. His face lit up with anticipation, because it could be perfect for his fighting style. The mage laughs merrily and explains that such a short staff would be completely useless in battle. It wouldn't even be able to reach the target. However, she admires Alex's unusual approach. Alex explains that he needs a compact staff, as he uses a sword and shield, and the magician agrees to make him one by the next day, warning that she will not be held responsible if he does not live up to expectations. With a smile on his face, the protagonist suggests cutting the staff by 20 centimeters, but the sorceress can't contain her laughter. She is amused by the idea and mocks Alex. The protagonist is looking forward to completing his equipment. By the next night, the magician, laughing, explains that each part of the staff has a different function, so trimming it will rob it of its power. After acquiring the staff, the protagonist meets Sally in the guild, who starts a conversation about promoting him in rank. She reports that his contribution in gathering herbs and removing the threat from the wolves was very much appreciated, and it is enough to advance the rank in the guild. Alex didn't expect such a thing. Sally explains that the first promotion requires one of the simple tasks, such as cleaning, transportation, or babysitting, any small help. The protagonist ponders this information and decides to choose one of the proposed tasks to move up the ranks even higher. He takes the request to transport iron ore, although this task is not the most popular among other adventurers. Alex thinks it will be very easy. The request offers a small reward for a kilogram of transported ore, but the hero decides that he can handle it. Thanks to his magic, he is now very strong. Sally cautions him that there are more lucrative assignments, but the hero is confident in his decision and has already thought it over and even set himself up for an easy job. Interested, the protagonist begins to ask questions about the maximum amount of his reward while trying to figure out how to properly use the new achievements. The protagonist examines his inventory and is surprised to learn that the number of slots in his item box is directly related to his magic power, MP level, thanks to his high level, which makes him very happy. Alex, breathing heavily, is rapidly running after the strange creature. He is clearly tense and focused on catching up with it. The protagonist is surprised by his own speed, which reaches 20 km/h, and jokes that with such a pace, he could even outrun Olympic athletes in a marathon race. Alex realizes that, thanks to his recent level increase, he can now run all day without fatigue. But despite his new abilities, he's not going to test it out. The hero arrives in the village and meets a local man who immediately asks to see his guild card to make sure he is who he says he is. Having been given a task, Alex must carry the iron ore, but the man, observing his lean physique, expresses doubt that he is up to the task. However, the man is soon shocked when Alex easily puts about 1,500 kilograms of iron ore into his item box, his abilities clearly exceeding the expectations of those around him. Alex explains that his box of objects has a much larger capacity than most other people's, and he himself does not fully know the limit of his abilities, but this discovery pleases him. Impressed by what he saw, the man asks the protagonist to stay in the city and continue to help in the transportation of iron ore. Alex agrees, but specifies that he does not know how long he will stay here. The protagonist gladly accepts the offer to help the village in the future. He shows enthusiasm and willingness to complete the task despite the uncertain plans. Alex completes the task, filling his inventory with a huge amount of ore. The man is shocked at how many items fit in his item box, thinking it is abnormal. When Alex explains that he has only used one slot of his inventory, leaving over 1,000 more slots free, the man is finally lost in wonder as he realizes the extent of the possibilities. The man jokingly suggests that the protagonist is the embodiment of a box of objects. So vast are his storage capabilities. While Alex replies that he is still a human being, albeit one with unusual skills. At this time, there is a commotion when the workers notice an unusually large amount of ore brought in. And in shock, they call the boss to look at this amazing sight. Once at the refiners, Alex reports that he has delivered only 10 tons of iron ore in one trip. This comes as a shock to all the workers who are not used to such a scale in such a short time. One of the workers asks in bewilderment how many treks it took to bring in that much ore, but Alex calmly replies that he did it in just one time, causing even more amazement. Despite being able to continue carrying ore, Alex decides to stop as the factory workers ask not to bring any more, as they simply can't process that much ore in a short amount of time. Upon his return to the guild, Alex learns that his actions have resulted in an immediate promotion, much to the delight and displeasure of Sally, who jokingly refuses to believe such an achievement. At the end of the day, the protagonist realizes that he could have taken on even more work, but he was stopped after the 5th. He was full of strength and energy. The next day, Alex finally completes the collection of his equipment. Having received the missing items, he is glad that his kit is now complete and ready for further adventures. The protagonist holds a miniature staff, causing the magician and armor salesman to laugh. He finds it amusing, calling it cute, which further fuels the hilarious atmosphere. Next, fully equipped, the protagonist moves quickly through the forest, preparing for his new mission, his cloak developing behind him, emphasizing his determination and courage. Alex goes deeper into the forest with full determination. He's ready to test his new equipment in battle. Focusing on the task ahead, Alex realizes that he is much stronger now. As he looks around, he receives an alarm signal. The forest around him is quiet, and he realizes that the response came from an approaching threat. It was wolves, the same wolves he had met many times before. With horror, he realizes that his opponents are a large pack of wolves. Their sheer number makes him think that there may be about 500 of them. He begins to feel anxious. A huge pack of wolves fills everything around him. They slowly move forward. Their menacing behavior makes the hero's heart beat faster. Alex has never experienced such tension before. Realizing that there is no way to retreat, he decides to fight. His face expresses readiness for battle. Alex is very determined. He pulls out his weapon to finally test it in action. The protagonist uses a magic potion that speeds up magic recovery by 10 times. This potion he once found in a dusty corner of a store, and now it will be useful in the upcoming battle. Although the potion is useless for normal mages, it is perfect for the hero, his unique skills and strategy. He is going to use all available means to win. The battle begins, and Alex fights off the wolves with his magic sword and shield. The pack advances, but he is confident in his strength and does not retreat. "I must win," he repeats to himself. A huge number of embittered wolves react to the approaching magical spears. The wolves look tense, ready to fight, not realizing what is happening. The protagonist attacks the wolves with the spell Spear of Stone, which flies directly at them. He confidently holds his shield, preparing for further action, and magical energy tears the air in front of him. The wolves begin to growl, showing their aggression, but the hero smiles, noticing that his magic has worked, at which point he remembers how he learned important principles of magic while developing spells. Alex reflects on his magical abilities. He realizes that despite the ability to increase the power of the spell, its range does not expand, which can be a problem when fighting multiple enemies. To deal with a large number of monsters, the hero decides to use several spells at the same time. He throws a fireball to increase the damage and faster deal with enemies. Suddenly, a huge explosion from one of his spells appears on the battlefield. Striking the area in front of him, a powerful fire wave engulfs the enemies, sweeping them out of the way. The battlefield is filled with the remains of wolves that were struck by a powerful explosion. The hero watches the effects of his spell as the wolves disappear into the dust. Alex rushes forward, following the wave of his attacks. He carefully watches his opponents, calculating his every move and preparing for the next strike. He must finish them off. The wolves continue to attack without surrendering, but Alex holds the line of defense with confidence. Using shield and magic to repel attacks, he does not retreat and fights with all his might. Alex continues to fight against the remaining wolves. He uses his weapons and magic skills to destroy the last opponents left on the battlefield, ending the battle. Alex decisively rushes into the attack, using another powerful spell. Energy flashes around him, and the wolves begin to fall one by one under his blows. After an intense battle, the protagonist looks around the battlefield and notes with slight disappointment the strength of the wolves. Although he won, this battle required more effort from him than he expected. A huge number of defeated enemies lie on the ground, and Alex realizes that all the wolves attacked him with purpose, which makes him realize that they were perfectly organized and posed a serious threat despite his success. Despite his victory, he notices that only 3 minutes have passed since the battle began, a fact that surprises him because, judging by the intensity of the battle, he thought it had been much longer. The screen shows Alex's characteristics. He has reached level 17, has a high level of magic and physical strength, which explains his success in battle. Even after an intense battle, his stats remain high, emphasizing his great potential in magic and combat skills. After counting the dead, he concludes that he has killed 513 wolves, an impressive number that makes him wonder how powerful the attack was. But he also wonders how such a huge pack of wolves could have gathered in one place. Despite his fatigue and surprise at the number of enemies, Alex decides to return to the guild to report that he has won a victory in an unequal battle. Turning around, Alex is surprised to find that the ground beneath his feet begins to shake. He looks around warily, realizing that he is facing a new threat. Something much bigger and more dangerous than the previous wolves is closing in on him. A giant creature appears from behind the trees, looking like a huge armored wolf. Its presence makes Alex anxious. He realizes that this is a much more dangerous opponent than all those he has faced before. The creature emits a loud roar, raising the air around him, and Alex realizes that he has another difficult battle ahead of him.